From Babylon to Buffalo, New York is rising. So if you're betting on the future, you need to bet on New York.
The governor sending a clear message. The state of New York is strong and will get stronger. But how does she plan to make the state better? We will hear from an expert panel. Hello and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray in Albany. All eyes on the state capitol this week as Governor Kathy Hochul delivered the State of the State address. Her goal to send a message to fellow lawmakers and state residents on what she would like to see get done in the session this year. High on the governor's list, increasing affordability. The governor proposed eliminating a state income tax on tips and continuing the freeze on tuition increases at the SUNY and CUNY schools. She also proposes cracking down on insurance fraud to lower auto rates and advancing the Affordable Utilities Omnibus legislation to lower energy bills. For housing, she's proposing increasing the eligibility for rent freeze programs for seniors and individuals with disabilities. The governor also proposing establishing the right to sue federal officers that may violate constitutional rights of a citizen. This in direct response to the ongoing federal illegal immigration crackdown, drawing national attention and protests.
This does not interfere with local law enforcement or public safety. It simply affirms a core truth. Power does not justify abuse. And if someone's constitutional rights are violated here in the state of New York, I say they deserve their day in court.
Republicans reacting to the governor's legislative plan. The Assembly Minority Leader Will Barclay saying the governor's address was full of, quote, finger pointing.
You know, I thought it's interesting. She started off by saying, we don't point fingers, we get things done in New York. And then she went on and pointed fingers about everything wrong with New York State. She blamed on Trump and the Republicans in Congress. So while there's certain policies and ideas that she proposed that I can agree with, ultimately, a lot of problems we're in New York State is because of Democratic one-party rule.
Joining us now, an expert panel to give some insight and analysis on the State of the State address. Keisha Kluge, she's a Capitol reporter now for Newsday, and Rebecca Garrard, she's the co-executive director for Citizens Action of New York. Citizen Action, I always make that plural.
No worries.
Ladies, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
If you had to put a headline, as we're all reporters here, what would you put on the State of the State in terms of what really stood out to you? I'll start with you, Rebecca.
Yeah, I think the headline would be, it's not enough from our perspective. So obviously there was the child care announcement prior to the State of the State. That is we would say the one good start, right? And the one thing to applaud. We also think that needs good workforce investment. But aside from that, we really were lacking sweeping, bold initiatives that I think New Yorkers want in this moment. We're facing a federal government that is cutting social safety nets and programs across the board, and we would like to see, and we think New Yorkers would like to see, bold plans.
Got you. How about you, Keisha?
I think that the governor was going for the affordability agenda, which we're seeing on both sides of the political spectrum as rising costs are everywhere. She's looking to address insurance costs, healthcare costs. Childcare was the big ticket item that we are looking for additional details on to see expanding universal pre-K, as well as how she's going to address the worker shortages in childcare. But I also thought she really put herself as sort of the Trump advocate. She had a number of standing ovations from the crowd for immigration policies that essentially would allow people to sue ICE if there was a violation of their civil rights, would protect immigrant communities in places such as schools and houses of worship. And then she also, kind of was talking about how costs are rising and things like that, sort of juxtaposing herself with the Trump administration. I will note it was very much an election year State of the State, and I imagine the budget will be the same, so we're not going to see things like tax cuts or anything like that. I think she'll is kind of trying to keep it positive and based on people's wallets. Yeah,
well, that was going to be my next point, and I'll throw it up to both of you again. It is an election year. It's almost like dancing on the head of a pin a little bit, because you want to keep people happy, but you also don't want to upset the business world by raising taxes and those things, or cutting tax. I mean, it really is a delicate balance, isn't it? When you're, yes, you want to push your budget out there, but you also want to get reelected.
Yeah, and I think she's clearly trying to walk that fine line between not wanting to alienate progressives and not wanting to alienate the challenge she's getting, from the right. I don't know that she's going to be able to walk that line through this election cycle. The reality is that you have a contingency of people. Taxing the rich is enormously popular. Let's just name the elephant in the room, and that is cross-party. When you poll Republicans, when you poll Democrats, taxing the ultra-wealthy, right? We're not talking about rich in terms of middle class, or we're talking about the ultra-wealthy, right? The billionaires, the millionaires, multimillionaires, right, who've increased their wealth. It's very popular. And so when we have New Yorkers who are struggling to pay the rent, struggling to pay for their health care, struggling to pay for their child care, I think it would be politically astute to sort of lean into this political moment we're in. Let's face it, we just had a New York City mayor elected on these bold ideas and that bold platform. And so, we clearly see her lane, which is sort of like, I'm going to try to ride the middle. I don't know how that's going to play out for her politically. I think New Yorkers are screaming for something different.
And I think we saw her kind of trying to walk that line as well in the State of the State address. She named newly elected Mayor Mamdani multiple times. He got multiple shout outs. He actually led the standing ovation on her child care proposal. But she also was tough on crime. She talks about utility costs, which are both things that Republicans are hitting her on. So you see she's kind of trying to maneuver that. I don't see her as increasing taxes on the wealthy. She said she won't do that. I think that's a little bit more left of center for her. But I could see something like increasing tax on corporations. The thing, though, is that the state has to be careful of that because there are only so many people that are getting taxed for that, and they could go to other states. We're one of the largest states in the nation, or one of the highest tax states in the nation. So I think at least that's the rhetoric on the other side of the spectrum. So it'll be interesting to see where she falls on that and how she addresses trying to keep those people in the state, but also trying to get revenues, and we'll see her trying to fill a $4 billion budget hole this year, as well as the potential for federal cuts and things like that.
And I'm so sorry, but just to your point, I think what'll be interesting to see too is, because I think you're right, she tried to score smartly political points on issues like utilities and immigration, right? We heard her name those things. But if you really look at what she was talking about, there wasn't much there, right? If you dig into the policy around the utilities, it's a cap, for a very small segment of people, and it's a person who will sort of mediate negotiations. Right. She's been very resistant, and in fact has vetoed policy that would put real teeth behind lowering utility costs and lowering the power of the special interests, the utility special interests in the fossil fuel. And in terms of the immigration, we have legislation that is being pushed. She is not supportive of it. What she suggested, like being able to sue if your civil rights were violated, is really reactive, not proactive. It remains to be seen, though, right? Can she score political points with the rhetoric, even if the policy doesn't back it up?
We only got 30 seconds left, so it's not an unfair question. You don't have time, but the illusion is that you look and say, well, blue state, Democrats run it. They run both houses. Whatever she wants, she gets. It's more complicated than that, right? I mean, she just can't. Legislature's not just going to rubber stamp everything. They're going to have their own agenda, things they want for their districts too.
Yeah, 100%. My guess is the legislature will push her to the left, and she'll try to hold the line towards the middle.
Yeah. And also note that the legislature is also up for election, so they'll want their own policies so they can go back to their districts with a successful budget as well.
Everybody wants money for their own ice skating rink, Ladies, thank you so much for coming in. Always fascinating.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
A federal law impacting both students and farmers around the state. When we come back, as whole milk gets put back on the menus for the school kids, we'll hear from the dairy production advocates on the impact this will have on them. Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. This week, President Trump signing bipartisan legislation into law requiring the National School Lunch Program to include whole and 2% milk as newer options for the kids to buy at school. The Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act reverses an Obama-era policy which limited public schools to offer only fat-free or low-fat milk, which is the 1% stuff. The law was voted on unanimously by Congress last year. Legislation also allows parents to request non-dairy milk as a substitute for kids with a dairy intolerance. Fat-free and low-fat milk will still be an option for the kids as well. Joining us now is Allison Jones-Brimmer. She's Executive Director for the Northeast Dairy Producers Association. Allison, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about all things dairy.
Well, this must be an exciting time because I guess I've been out of school a million years, but I kind of forgot that whole milk was, you couldn't have it in the schools, and now it's coming back. This has got to be a big deal for dairy farmers.
Yes, definitely exciting. We think it's a win-win for farmers and students. Back in 2012, it became no longer possible to serve all fat levels of milk in school meals. So the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, which was signed this week by the president, will change that and give the schools the flexibility to make those decisions locally and offer different choices for their students in terms of different levels of fat in the milk. Whole milk, 2% milk will be able to be options going forward. It's just a great change for student nutrition. Milk has 13 essential nutrients for growth and development for kids. And we found that there was a lot of food waste going on when students were offered milk that they weren't used to drinking at home. They would just choose to throw that milk away instead of drinking it. So we're excited that this opportunity will be placed on schools to offer those choices to students so they can drink what they drink at home and improve their nutrition. As well as creating potentially more market demand for our New York State farmers' dairy products.
Yeah, I want to seize on that a little bit because I'll use me for example. We drank only 2% in my house, which is great, but I found 1% was too light and whole milk was too heavy for me. Kids really do get particular about what they drink, don't they? And if you can match it up with what's at home, now they've got all these options at school. You'll be able to, every kid will find something that they like, right?
That's the hope, giving them more options, more ability to choose, and making sure that they have an option that they want to drink so that they take advantage of that school meal. They feel full, they're able to learn and focus on school. Definitely good to offer students choices that are healthy, nutritious, but also something that they're willing to eat and make sure they have a full belly to focus on learning.
Absolutely. Let's talk about dairy farmers a little bit. I feel like they're these invisible heroes a little bit. We go to the store, whether it's a convenience store or a supermarket, that whole rack is full of milk every time. We just grab it and don't think about the cows or the farmers or where it comes from. And it's a big industry here in New York State, isn't it, dairy farms? And how are they doing?
So New York dairy farmers are really important to feeding our neighbors, and you grab a gallon of milk off the shelf but don't think too much about what went into producing that. So a couple of things going on in New York State's dairy industry today. We are experiencing a surge in growth of processing capacity, expansion and modernization of existing plants, as well as really large projects to build new plants across the state. So that creates a really exciting outlook for the dairy community as a whole, both farmers and processors in the state, and a really impressive investment both from the state and the private side. At the same time, though, we do have a little bit of a concern in the short term where the economic outlook for dairy farmers this year is not great. Unfortunately, there's a pretty low milk price projected. So we need to help farms be able to weather that storm in the short term because they don't get to set the price of their milk. They receive, their pricing is based on a federal formula based on supply and demand. It's a pretty complicated formula, but they really can't pass any increased costs of doing business onto the folks that buy their products. So farmers have to kind of absorb that into their own business, which creates a real challenge when that milk price isn't strong.
Yeah, is that one of those misnomers out there that you say, well, any business, if I run a diner and eggs go up, I'll just charge an extra 50 cents for eggs and bacon on my menu. dairy farm, they've got different rules. They just can't say we're going to charge $1 more for a gallon of milk, right? There's rules in place, and it's not that simple.
Exactly. It's a pretty complicated formula that determines what farmers will be paid for their milk, and they often don't find that out until a month after they sell the milk. So they're on a daily basis milking cows, shipping milk to their local processor, the plant that they serve, and then a month later they find out what they're going to get paid for that product, and they receive a check for it. So they don't have, it's one of those variables that they're just not able to control and not able to have much impact on, unfortunately. So they have to make a lot of business decisions to help keep their business viable, keep their family's livelihood in place while this kind of uncertain and uncontrollable factor exists for them.
Got about a minute left. Is there anything you'd like to see out of Albany with lawmakers to help dairy farmers out a little bit more, or changing of rules, more funding for something? Is there a wish list? If the governor waved you in and said, tell me what you guys need, what you would say?
Yeah, so I think just keeping in mind this short-term economic outlook, we need the state to be able to support the farmers in order for the farmers to provide that milk to the processing plants that the state has provided some investments in. So we were excited by many of the proposals in the State of the State address. We look forward to working with the legislature and Governor Hochul and other state leaders on seeing these through to the enacted state budget. But we are excited about the possibility of extending the investment tax credit. That's a refundable tax credit for farmers to invest in their business. Excited about the Dairy Modernization Grant Program, which helps farms modernize their cooling and storage that they have on farm. And really curious to see more details on this proposed Agricultural Resiliency Against Tariffs program. Want to see those proposals in full detail. And also, there's just several existing programs that the state invests in that are essential to farmers and their success in the future, including Cornell University's Pro Dairy program and the Cornell University Ruminant Center, which research on-farm solutions for dairy and help provide farmers with innovative solutions. And it's a win-win for the state as well, for making sure we're reducing our climate impact as much as possible, having a positive impact on water quality and environmental sustainability.
All right.
And in addition to that, the labor side is important too. So it's a pretty expensive place to do business on some of the labor regulations and costs. So making sure we're investing in Cornell Ag Workforce Development and the New York Center for Agricultural Medicine and Health, all really essential for farmers.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Allison Jones-Brimmer with the Northeast Dairy Producers, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Trump administration again promising to impact federal funding for New York City. When we come back, how the new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, is planning to respond. Welcome back. Federal policy set to have an impact in New York City, with the president promising to make some cuts to blue cities. Here's reporter Henry Rossoff with a response from the new mayor.
There are times when the president reaches out. There are times when I reach out to the president.
Just 2 weeks into leading the city, Mayor Zohran Mamdani confirmed he's stayed in touch with President Donald Trump following that unexpectedly warm meeting the two had a few months back in the Oval Office. But now the fledgling friendly relationship has encountered its first test. Just as Mayor Mamdani says he's going to spend millions of dollars fixing the city's 3K program and ultimately expanding free daycare to 2-year-olds, President Trump is again threatening sanctuary cities like New York that do not cooperate with federal authorities on immigration enforcement. The president says, without going into detail, funding cuts will be coming February 1st.
You'll see. It'll be significant.
This is that moment where New Yorkers are looking at you and saying, Mr. Mayor, what can you do relative to the relationship with President Trump to alleviate some of these concerns? So what can you do, sir?
I will continue to make the case for New York City. And I think that's been at the heart of every conversation that I've had with the president, whether it's in the Oval Office or through the handful of texts and calls that we've exchanged. It's always about making the case for this city. And when it comes to the threat to restrict federal funding to New York City, I want to be very clear that our values and our laws are not bargaining chips. We will stand up for them, and we will stand up for them even in the face of these kinds of threats.
Mamdani says he's reached out to President Trump to discuss the funding threat. But as of Wednesday afternoon when we spoke, he's not heard back.
Any cut in funding would have a significant impact on the city's ability to not only fulfill the budget that it has today, but also to fulfill an agenda that would ensure that more New Yorkers can afford to stay in this city.
Stick around. Back with a look at the week ahead in just a bit. And by the way, if you got a comment or story idea, tell us about it. You can email us at news@news10.com. We're also on X at WTEN. And finally, in Empire State Weekly, lawmakers this week continuing to support the growth of the semiconductor chip industry in the state. Officials joining leaders of the chip company Micron in central New York for the new facility's groundbreaking. The town of Clay launching a construction on Micron's massive $100 billion mega fab facility. Now, this project will kick off a 20-year build expected to bring in more than 50,000 jobs to central New York. We'll be sure to keep an eye on that facility, as well as any developments in the chip industry, and of course, bring you the latest analysis on all of it. For now, from all of us here at Empire State Weekly, I'm John Gray. Don't forget you can watch this show all over New York State. Here's the full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 TV stations across the great state of New York.